wondering why I'm whispering, well, we've had a lot of requests on the channel over the last 2 months to try ASMR, so we're going to do it once and once only, unless of course this video gets 100 million views, in which case we might do it twice, but that's why I'm whispering today, so don't adjust your volumes, or maybe do, but I'm going to attempt to solve this entire Sudoku puzzle using only the power of my whispering voice. Now, to do this has already proved difficult because I've had to raise my microphone, as you can see, off the desk. I had to use 3 different books. I tried War and Peace first of all, and that wasn't enough. I added Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince. That wasn't enough, so I've even got my Bradford's Crossword Dictionary as well now piled up on the desk to try and get this microphone high enough. Now, what puzzle are we doing today? Well, actually, we've got a repeat author. Jesper Josefsson only appeared on the channel a couple of days ago, but I wanted to do a little killer Sudoku, and this has appeared on Logic Masters Germany, and it has 100% rating, so I thought we would give it a try. Also, Jesper wrote me a nice email this morning to suggest that we did it, so that's also helped his cause. What else do I want to tell you? We released a bonus video for our followers on Patreon this morning, which is a Philomeno puzzle, a beautiful Philomeno puzzle by Elliot Grant. The puzzle appeared on gmpuzzles.com recently, and it's really an absolute beauty, so do check that out. Other than that, Mark will be back later, obviously. We're continuing our 2 videos a day schedule during lockdown, and he's got news of the upcoming UK Sudoku Championship, so do look out for that. I think that's coming this weekend with puzzles by Sam Kappelman-Lyons and also Tom Collier, so we know it's going to be good. Now, what are the rules of this puzzle? Well, normal Sudoku rules apply. Clues are given on selected diagonals in the format T, square brackets, S. T is the total sum of the digits along the diagonal. S is the sum of the digits on the diagonal that are located between the highest and lowest digit present on that diagonal, but excluding those 2 digits. If S is given as a number, 0 or greater, there is a unique highest digit and a unique lowest digit on the diagonal. If S is given as a hyphen, the sandwich sum is undefined because the highest digit or the lowest digit, or both, repeat along the diagonal. Sometimes the T clue is omitted and only the S part is given. So as I look round the grid, I think I understand what's going on there. So this diagonal here is unspecified, which means either the highest digit or the lowest digit along the diagonal must be repeated. There's another one of these clues here without a total, look, 0 clue, just pointing upwards. Now do have a go at the puzzle as usual. You just click on the video to play, and with that, let's get cracking quietly. Okay, I can see that I can write in an 8 in this square, look. Now how can I do that? Well, it's because we know that there's only 3 cells in this diagonal. We know that the sandwich total is 8, so that must go in the middle as a single digit, and the outside cells, look, are going to have to sum up to 10. But we can actually write those in because one of those digits is going to have to be higher than an 8 in order that it forms the crust of the sandwich. So it must be a 9, and if one of the digits is a 9 and the 2 digits together add to 10, we've actually got a 1-9 pair. I hope my keyboard isn't going to spoil the effect of this ASMR. I have no idea what the effect of ASMR is. I've just been told to whisper. You guys will have to tell me. Please don't get too cross though. The people who've been asking for this, I think, really think it will help them to relax. So hopefully the video will be reusable if it does do that. Now look, we've got an 11 clue here with a 2 sandwich total. Again, it's only 3 cells long, so this square here is going to have to be the 2. other side. We know that one of these cells is going to have to be lower than a 2 in order to form the edge of the sandwich, so it must be a 1. But we know the whole diagonal sums to 11, so there must also be an 8. Okay, well now my attention is drawn to this 54 clue with a 30 sandwich, and the reason is that I can see that I've got a 1 off the diagonal in both of these boxes, look. So that means that if there is a 1 on this diagonal and it acts as the sandwich crust, the maximum size of the sandwich filling would be 4 cells. Why is that? Well, let's try the one here. If this was a 9, you can see that we'd only have those 4 cells there to fill the sandwich with. Now, can we make 4 cells sum to 30 if one of the cells is a 2? No, we can't. These 3 cells would each have to, well, we could have 3 9s wouldn't even be enough, so that's not going to work. What does that mean? Well, I'm not sure. Let me just think about it for a second. Well, the first thing it means is that as 1 isn't a boundary of the sandwich, 2 must be. So this 2, I'm going to colour it in. This 2 must be a bound of the sandwich. Now that's also interesting, look, because we can't include a 9 on the diagonal unless we put it here when the sandwich would be too short to make a total of 30. So actually the 8 must bound the sandwich as well. Now, how do we use that? Okay, well, yeah, one thing we can do is actually to think about the cells outside the sandwich. Because if these 2 cells sum to 10, and these 5 cells in the middle of the sandwich sum to 30, that's 40 altogether, but the total for the whole diagonal is 54. So these 2 squares are going to have to sum up to 14, but they have to sum up to 14 without using a 9 and without using an 8. We can't repeat the 8 or it'll be that breaches the rules of the puzzle, and obviously if we use a 9 in either of these cells, that would become the crust of the sandwich. So the only way of making 14 without using 9 and 8 is to repeat a 7, so they must both be 7. Okay, and now look, we can continue the logic on the diagonal, because now these 5 cells have to sum up to 30, but we can only use 7 a maximum of once in the 5 cells, because we could put 1 7 in those 3 cells there, but that's all. We can't have a 7 here, and we can't put 2 7s along here. So this actually specifies the diagonal look, because now we've got, if we put 5, 6 and 7 into these cells, that adds up to 18. We still need another 12, but we can't use any digit higher than a 6, so that must be 6 repeating in these 2 cells with 5, 6, 7 in the diagonal. That's the only way we can get up to 30. Right, now I feel like I'm closer to the screen than I normally am here, which I'm sure it's affecting my scanning. Okay, sorry about this, I just need to stare for a second or two. Oh, okay, look, we've got an 11 clue here, but the 11 clue has, there's no valid sandwich along these 4 cells. Now the interesting thing to me about these 4 cells is that these 2, look, they can't contain a 1 or a 2. So the minimum value for these 2 would be 3 and 4. So if these were 3 and, now hang on, there's something else I've noticed, look. Can we include, we can't put 1s in both of those cells, because because if we do, we can't put a 1 in box 1. It will remove both of those possibilities. So if we don't repeat the 1s, well, we can't repeat any other digit because the minimum value of these two squares is 3 and 4. If I repeat either of these digits, I break the 11 sum too quickly. If there's two 3s, if we try and put a 3 here, for example, these squares here would already sum. Oh, actually, maybe that does work. Oh no, it doesn't work, because that would actually, if I put a 1 here now, that doesn't work because the 4 and the 1 would be valid sandwich totals. Yeah, okay, I see. So actually the better way to think about it is whether we could put 4 outside the totals. And then we can't, we've already got 11. And a 1 here would still break the total. So yeah, so the reason this hyphen, I must remember this, it refers specifically to repeats in the sandwich crusts, not to general digits. So how can we fill these cells then? Well, if we can't have 2 1s outside, and 2 3s and a 4 can't bound the sandwich, because then there would also have to be a 5. There must be 2 2s, so these two squares have got to be 2 2s. They add up to 4, these two have to add up to 7. They must be 3 and 4. Those two squares must be 5 and 9, look. Okay, so we've got a similar clue here, this 10 clue. So how does that work? These two squares could be 2 and 3, and then these two would have to add up to 5. But if they added up to 5, they couldn't be 1 and 4 because that would create a valid sandwich, so they'd have to be 2 and 3. So one option is that we've got 2 2s and 2 3s in this diagonal. But this time, look, we could actually have 2 4 in here, with these both being 2 as well. So we could have 3 2s along this diagonal and a 4, and that would work for the 10. So we know there must be a 2 in one of those two squares. And a bit like with the 11 clue, we can't include 2 1s because that will break box 9's 1s. So we know that 2 does act as a boundary in this 10 clue, but I just don't think we know how it goes. Look, the 26 clue I think is important because we have a 6 here. So this must be a 3-cell sandwich, because whatever I add to 6, even if I add a 9, it's not enough to make 16. So if there's a 3-cell sandwich, the sandwich must be these 3 cells here, which means that these 2 cells must be the sandwich crusts. Now, okay, so the sandwich crusts sum to 10, so these 2 cells sum to 10. Now I think they have to be 1 and 9. Why do I think that? Well, they can't be 2 and 8 because we can't place a 2 in either of the cells. They can't be 3 and 7 because the 7 here is clever. It rules out both of the cells. If we try 4 and 6 as the sandwich crusts, the 6 repeats in the column. That's not allowed under the rules. And if we try and put 2 5s into these 2 cells, 6 is actually greater, so it should form the crust of the sandwich, so that doesn't work either. So I think we can say that these 2 cells have got to be 1 and 9. Now these 2 cells also sum to 10 in order to make these equal 16. So, but I think these can be 3 7, 4 6, or even perhaps 2 5s. Now, Okay, I can't see what to do with that clue. I'm not sure I can do anything more. So I'm going to have a look at... Well, the only clue I've not looked at that has a total is the 17-7 clue, which doesn't look very appetizing, but let's have a look at that. So we've got these 6 cells need to add up to 17. So the first bit of logic I can see here is that the sandwich total of 7 can't be a single cell total, because if it was, let's try that. Look, if it was a 7 here, there would have to be a number in this diagonal higher than a 7 in order to act as the crust of the sandwich, so it would have to be at least an 8. But once we've got a 7 and an 8, we've now got to make those 4 squares add up to 2, which is clearly impossible. So this must be a 2-cell sandwich. A 3-cell sandwich would be impossible, because 1, 2 and 4 would repeat the 1 as a crust. So it's a 2-cell sandwich. Look, we can do something else here, because there must be, well, there must be a 1 as one of these cells. Now how do we know that? Well, let's try and see if we can get to 17 without using a 1. Well, the minimum we could make these 3 square cells would be 2, 3 and 4. The minimum we could make these 3 cells would be 2, 3 and 4. Now that's 2 lots of 9, which is 18, that's too many. So there must be a 1 in one of these cells, and so that 1 must act as a crust of the sandwich. Now if we've got a 2-cell sandwich then, so if we try 2 and 5 to make the 7 inside the sandwich, then the minimum we could have as the crust would be a 6, because we need 1 cell to be greater than 5. So that in this diagonal then, we'd have a 2 and a 5 in the sandwich, a minimum of 1 and 6 outside the sandwich. So that's 14, 15, 16. So the only way of making the total work would be to repeat the 1. Now we can't repeat the 1, isn't that beautiful? So in fact what we have to do here is not use 2 and 5, it must be 3 and 4 inside the sandwich. 3 and 4. Right, I see. So yes, what we're going to have to do is repeat the 2. So we've got 3 and 4 inside the sandwich. Just 1 second, I'm just going to close my door. Sorry about that, I just figured that trying to do ASMR probably wouldn't work with the sound of shouting in the background. So where were we? Oh yeah, I think I'd found out something quite good about this 17 clue. It's got to have a 3 and a 4 in the middle of the sandwich. It's got to have a 1 and a 5 outside the sandwich, and therefore the other 2 cells must both be 2. And the only way of that working is going to be to have the 2 outside. The 1 and the 5 here, look, and the 3 and the 4 there. So we can place a 2 here now, look. Now this is important for the 10 clue, because the 10 clue now can't have a 2 here, so this has to be a 3. This 3 sees this square, so that's a 4, that's a 3, that's a 3, that's a 4. That square now can't be a 3, oops, so this one can't be a 7. This can't be a 4, so this can't be a 6. Oh, look at box 4. Where can we place a 3 in box 4? It can only go in this square here. This 3 sees the 3 and the 2 in box 9. By Sudoku we can place a 3 in box 7. Oh, and by Sudoku we can place a 3 in box 5 as well. And in box 2. Oh, so in fact all the 3s these are now placed. Okay, so now we can pencil some 2s into box 6 and some 2s into box 3, and we can place a 2 in box 7 just by Sudoku. I'm having a look at this 0 clue, but I don't really understand. I mean, it means that the highest and the lowest digit in this run of 6 cells have got to be together, and it means that they can't be repeated. But that seems to me to be utterly useless at this point, so I'm not going to. I don't think that's where I'm meant to look now. Oh, look. One thing we can do is pencil mark those 2 squares have got to be 4 and 5, look, just to complete this box. 5. It's quite interesting now, the state of the puzzle, because there's nothing. Well, unless I'm missing something, I'm not exactly sure how to use the clues outside the grid to make further progress. So probably there's some sort of Sudoku that we need to do to make further progress. Yes, look at this 6 here. There must be a 6 in one of those 2 cells. There's no 6 in this cell now. Now look, there's a trick. We can do a trick. Look at this. There's a funny relationship here. It's almost like a skyscraper, but it's not a skyscraper because the 4 cells involved don't all contain the same digit. But because there's this weird diagonal constraint going on, it sort of works in a similar way. If this square is a 1, it forces this square to be a 5 and this square to be a 9, and that means there's no possible value for row 1, column 2. 5 and 9 would both be ruled out of this square, but we know from our pencil marks it must be a 5 or a 9. So this square is not a 1, this must be a 5. That gives us a 5 and a 4 over there. And this, oh, now look, as this square's got to be a 1, everything's going to flow now. That's got to be a 9, this has got to be a 5, this has got to be a 9, this has got to be a 1, this has got to be an 8, this has got to be a 1. Oh, now look, we've got 1s and 9s in these yellow positions, so this is a 1-9 pair now at the bottom. Those 2 squares have got to be 5 and 7. These 2 squares have got to be 6 and 8 to complete the box. Okay, now so what can we see now? Yeah, this 3 forces this square to be a 7 because we know that those 2 squares had to add up to 10. So this is a 7 in one of those 2 positions. One, 2, 6, 4, 6, 8. If we look down column 1 of the grid, we need to place 4, 6 and 8 in the column. This square can only be a 6 because there's a 4 and an 8 in row 8 already. So that's rather nice. That gives us the 6, the 8. It gives us a 4 as well. There must be a 4 in one of these 2 squares. These 3 squares now have got to be 5, 7 and 8. Oh, the bottom one has to be an 8. These 2 have got to be 5 and 7. The 5 fixes the order, look. These 2 squares actually have got to be 7 and 8 because there's a 1-9 pair in the row. These 2 squares, on the other hand, have also got to be, they've got to be 4 and 6. which is which. Oh, and these two have to be 1 and 9 then. Whoops. Okay. It's very strange actually being this close to the microphone and this close to the screen. I can't see properly, which is why I'm not solving this at an immense pace. Ah, now hang on, look, I can use the 0 clue now. Because the 0 clue has got a 1 in the diagonal. So the 1 has got to be a crust of the sandwich, and look, it's got to also be next to the highest digit in the diagonal. Now that must be the 8, because it can't be the cell that can only contain 5 and 7. So, oh, this is very beautiful actually. If we focus on this diagonal, where do we put? Yeah, there can't be an 8 or a 9 anywhere else on this diagonal now. So if there can't be an 8 or a 9 in the yellow squares, where do we put the 8s and the 9s in box 2? It's got to be in these 2 squares. And this 8, 9, look at the effect they have on box 8. It's absolutely stellar. We get an 8, a 7 and a 5 here. That gives us the 6 and the 7 in the centre. This 8, 9 also disambiguates the 1, 9 at the bottom. That's a 1 by normal Sudoku. And these 3 squares now have got to be 4, 5 and 6. Oh, this one has to be 5. This is a 4, 6 pair. This 6 fixes that this is a 6, 4. That fixes the 4, 6 pair straight away. If I haven't made an error, this square's got to be an 8. These squares have got to be 4 and 9, and you can see we can resolve it straight away. The 7 fixes the 7 and the 5. I think we're doing quite well now. So now these 2 squares have got to be 7 and 9, which we don't know the order of, and these have got to be 2, 4 and 6 to complete the row. And I don't know the order of that either. That can't be a 6, that can't be a 2, and that one can't be a 4. These squares have got to be 1, 5 and 8. That was a 5, 8 here, so this square's got to be a 1. These are a 5, 8 pair now. Let's have a look at row 1 of the grid. You can see we need a 4 and a 5 which we can place. The 5 fixes the 5 and the 8 in row 4. The 4 fixes the 2, 6, 4 triple. That forces a 2 into this square. This must be a 1 or a 9. Oh look, this is just a single. This can only be a 6, this square here. So these 2 have got to be 7, 8 and 9 in some order to complete the row. That can't be 8. This has got to be 1, 8 or 9. Okay, so now we've basically done everything except use this clue up at the top. So let's see. Right, so this is telling us that either the crust of the sandwich, well, either the low crust or the high crust has to be repeated. Now, it could be 9, but we can't obviously repeat 9 in the same 3 by 3 box. So it's not 9, it must be 8. 8 is the only digit we can repeat. That's an 8. Oh, this is going to fix it, isn't it? So now everything gets fixed at the bottom of the grid. It's a gorgeous puzzle again from Jesper, isn't it? Absolutely lovely. Although I might have broken it because I've got 7. What have I done wrong? No, this is very, very clever. This clue is cleverer than I thought. Look, this hyphen. Because not only does it fix the 8s, if this was a 9 here, then this would have a valid sandwich total. It would be a 9 and a 6 would be the highest and the lowest digit. So in that situation, this clue should be an 8 and it's not. So this can't be a 9, this has to be a 7. And that's going to allow us to disambiguate the last 4 cells. Beautiful. What a beautiful puzzle. So I hope that's okay. I'm sorry for those of you who don't like ASMR, but as I say, we have a lot of viewers who have asked us to do this. It's a one-off, and yeah, I hope for those of you who've requested it, it's what you were after. We'll see you later on Cracking the Cryptic.